today I would do a little vet school update for you guys now that I'm in clinics. I think my last one I did was when I was a first year, so it was in didactics, which was kind of like the lecture, exam, bookwork part of vet school, and now I'm in clinics, so it's totally different, and I thought I'd just explain it to you guys today. And if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. Okay, so let's start with my last finals week of vet school ever, which was so nice. The way that we do it at Mizzou is we're kind of on the quarter system, so our what we call instructional periods are 8 weeks long, and but we don't call them quarters because they go into the summer, so it would have been like 5 quarters in a year. So we have 11 instructional periods, or IPs. And we go into October of our 3rd year, and that's when we switch from didactics to clinics. And yeah, all of the upperclassmen say that IP 11, which is our last block, is the hardest, and it was hard. I don't know if it was the hardest because starting vet school is a really big challenge, but IP 11 was definitely a really big hurdle, and one of the reasons it was so hard was because of a class called Cardiology, which is a fancy word for reproduction. And it's just a really hard class, and it was even harder because I don't really have an interest in large animal, which is where a lot of it is applied. And I don't really have an interest in dog breeding, which is where it can be applied in small animals, so I just wasn't that interested in it, and it was super hard. And so it's just a lot of hormones to remember, and a lot of schedules to remember, and a lot of just moving variables that were just really confusing, especially learning as much as we did about it in such a short amount of time. So that one was a struggle, and that final was a struggle, but we got through it, and yeah, and that's just, it's in the past, so it's nice. So yeah, after our last week of vet school, our last finals week, we all got to do something called white coat ceremony, and that is where we have a big celebration, kind of signifying your change from didactics to clinics, and we rent out this this big auditorium, and we all get our white coats put on by someone that is in our family, or is our loved one, or our significant other, or something like that. And so I actually have a vlog of my white coat, and I'll link it for you guys. And so you can go check that out, kind of behind the scenes of all of that. And so I had my mom coat me, and then we all went to the columns, which at Missouri we have these great big columns of a building that used to be there, and it's kind of in the middle of this big park. And so everybody goes there to take pictures. And yeah, it was just really great, and people were popping champagne, and it was just really fun. So yeah, so we did that, and then my friends rented out, all of us pitched in, and we rented out this this like tent at a winery, and and then we got some catering by like the local grocery store or something, and so we all got to have food and some wine and meet each other's families and just hang out. And so it was a really, really fun evening. I'm so glad that we all decided to pitch in and to make that happen, because it was just so good. But like I said, I'll link the video for you guys so you can go check it out. And then after white coat, we had our clinical orientation. So at our clinical orientation, we basically all just sat in our big auditorium, and we had all of the clinicians and faculty come in and talk to us about different things like our pharmacy and our online record keeping system, and like all the policies at the hospital. And we also did something that was really cool, and we went to the med school actually, and we participated in like a patient simulation. And I did this once in my elective class called PBL, which is problem-based learning. So it was really fun to do it for a second time, but what it is essentially is you go in and you're given like a prompt or like a problem that this patient has, and you have to go in and there's an actor in there, and sometimes because we're vets we have like a stuffed animal and you go in and you have to just like be a doctor and feel out the situation, and sometimes it's delivering bad news or uncomfortable news, or in my case it was there was like a scheduling error that was the fault of the hospital. So this client came in and her day had essentially been turned upside down because she was told she was supposed to come in at a certain time and we had it on our schedule at another time, so it was just this whole conflict that was frustrating for everyone. And that's something that like happens in real life. And so it was kind of just de-escalating that situation and getting back to the important parts, which was her dog was coming in for like a neuter or something like that. And you know, making it up to the client, moving forward, and yeah, so it was a good learning experience, especially before actually stepping into my first rotation, which was community practice. So my first rotation was local medicine and then shelter medicine, and I'm so happy that I had local as my first rotation, and we can actually preference our rotations. So when we're signing up for our scheduling, we can kind of preference what we want at what time of year, and at like the top of my preferences was local medicine, first block, because I really just wanted to start slow and start familiar and to get like a good footing as to where things are in the hospital. And yeah, so I definitely recommend starting with something that you're familiar with or that you're excited to do. Like some people who maybe want to be equine vets, like they may have wanted to start on equine, or you know, if you want to be a production vet, you might want to start on food animal or something like that. But yeah, so I had a really good time, and there were lots of puppies, which was always a good thing. And yeah, and then I went on to shelter medicine, and shelter medicine was so fun. It was so cool. We got to do a bunch of surgeries, and basically how it works at the University of Missouri is we have a couple, we have a humane society in town, we have a couple rescues, and we work with them to give them really great options for castration procedures, so spays and neuters. And they know that students are performing them, and under a very close eye of our attending clinicians. And yeah, it was just really amazing to get that surgery experience and to have clinicians and mentors that were so kind and so great. Like I always talk about one of my professors, like if anyone I hear is gonna go on to shelter in their next rotation, I'm like, oh, you're gonna love this professor, because he was just so like calming, which sounds funny, but when you know you're doing surgery and it's a high stress thing, you know, you don't want your surgeon to be stressed out and scared. You want them to be confident, and that's something that he did a really good job helping us become, because you know we would do like an incision, and then he, you know, and we would look to him for the next step, and he'd be like, that was such a good incision, and then we would, you know, do the next step and dissect to the linea alba, and then he would, you know, we would do a little incision to the linea alba, and he was just like, oh, that was beautiful, great technique, and then, you know, we would keep going. And so, you know, he was there to help us if something didn't go right, or if, you know, we were learning something for the first time, or if there's some, you know, a struggle of any kind. And he was really good at correcting that or helping us through that, but he was also really, really good at letting us know when we did something right. And I think that was like the biggest confidence booster of like, you know, I think it's so easy to just move on when you're doing the right thing, and to not stop and recognize like that's a good thing and that's an improvement, and that that you're learning and that it's working. And so that was one of my favorite parts of that rotation, is just feeling a lot more confident in surgery and in spays and neuters. And we got to go on a mobile spay and neuter clinic, so it was like a semi-bus basically that was outfitted to be a surgery suite too, actually. And we would go to rural clinics and help spay and neuter their animals, and it helped them out a bunch and it helped us out a bunch, and it was really cool to do it kind of on the road, and yeah, it was just a great time. So after shelter medicine, I went on to an elective rotation called Equine Techniques, and as someone who is not super familiar with horses, I did do quite a bit of horse experience before vet school, but it's been a while, so I wanted to kind of ease my way back in before my equine rotation, which I'm a little intimidated by. I'm sure it'll be fine, but you know, it's just, the horses are just so different from small animals, and so I wanted to have a couple of skills under my belt before I took that rotation. And the Equine Techniques rotation, we used quite a few of the university horses. They own their own group of horses, and they're used for teaching purposes. We take x-rays of them, we place bandages on them, you know, we just do little non-invasive procedures that help people learn. And so it was really good to do that, and to do it on a university horse. And yeah, it was just kind of a nice way to ease into that experience. And we did some pretty cool stuff. I was able to place an IV catheter, which in a small animal, it's a cool thing to do, but you get used to it and you're like, okay, I got this. And on a horse, it's just, of course, everything's bigger, and everything, you know, the patient is bigger, and it just seems so much more intense. And I was able to do it on a simulation model, and then able to do it on a horse, and it was just really cool. And I got it on my first real try. The simulator took a couple minutes, but on my first try, I got it, and I was just so thrilled. And then we also got to try bandaging. We gave nerve blocks, and we did some ultrasounds. And this next part it was fascinating, because when we took our theriogenology course, one of the things that they warned us about was rectally palpating mares. And for those of you who don't know, that is done when we're maybe trying to breed a mare, or see if she's pregnant, or diagnose any sort of problems in that area. And but mares, unlike cows, they're very delicate, I guess, in that area, and they are very prone to, or at least more so than cows, they're prone to rectal tears, and that can be extremely life-threatening. It can be very dangerous. If that were to happen, it's definitely an emergency situation, especially depending on how severe it is. And so a lot of people are kind of understandably hesitant about rectally palpating mares. And our clinician allowed us to try it, and to, you know, to build that confidence, which I think is really important in this area as well. And I think we were all a little hesitant at first, but then we got, you know, through it, and she gave us lots of tips on how to avoid doing some, you know, avoid making a tear or something like that. And we got to use the ultrasound, and we got to see ovaries, and we got to see all this really cool stuff. So that was definitely some experience that I didn't think I would get on that rotation. That was a huge deal, and I'm not that interested in a large animal or equine, so I don't know if I'll be using this knowledge, but still, it made me feel a lot more comfortable on my equine rotation to come up. So I'm excited for that now, and I was a little bit scared for it before, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so after Equine Techniques, I did one of my favorite rotations thus far, which was emergency medicine and critical care. And if you guys have been following me for a little bit, you might know that I think I'm interested in emergency medicine. And I was a little hesitant before going on to this rotation because I thought I was interested in it, but I hadn't had a lot of experience in it. So I was like, what if I'm just, what if it's all in my head? What if it's just in theory that I like it and I get there and I hate it? And so I was a little worried about that happening, but I got there and I was expecting it to be kind of stressful and fast paced. And it really wasn't. Like, it was way more chill than I thought it was going to be. So it was just so nice. And all of our clinicians in emergency are so cool and supportive and just really, really great teachers. And yeah, so now I'm considering, now I'm definitely interested in emergency medicine. So it was a really cool rotation and I got to see a lot. I got to see some foreign bodies. I saw an esophageal foreign body that got taken out with an endoscope, so that was cool to see. I got to see some chocolate toxicities. My rotation was kind of around Christmas time, so there were a lot of extra treats out and some pups got into some things that they shouldn't have. So it was cool to be able to see those cases. And I got to see a hip luxation, some lacerations, and I got to see some critical care patients. And one of them had something called immune-mediated thrombocytopenia, and my parents' dog actually had this too, so I was familiar with it. And it's essentially where your immune system thinks that your platelets are foreign invaders and they attack them, and you don't have platelets left to clot with, so it can be really dangerous, and it can range from somewhat mild to very, very severe. And it was fascinating to see how it's treated and kind of some newer methods of treatment, some things that they could add on, and yeah, so that was a really in-depth case that I got to see. That was I definitely learned a lot on it. And I also got to see a patient that was on a ventilator, so it was fascinating to see how much round-the-clock care that patient needed, and all of the extra complicating factors that are involved when a patient is on a ventilator. And I got to do my first abdominocentesis, which was done on a patient that came in with ascites. So that's where there's extra fluid in the abdomen when there shouldn't be. And so essentially you place a catheter into the abdomen and you drain that fluid. And so I got to do that, and yeah, so I definitely learned a lot on that rotation, and I'll be taking it again, so I'm really excited. So after that I had oncology, and so we helped treat cancer patients, and it was a pretty relaxed rotation. It was nice, and I have an interest in oncology because one day, if I'm a general practitioner, I hope to have a bit of a better knowledge of oncology, because I just want to be a good vet, especially in that area, because as our animals get older and older, that becomes more and more common. And I could definitely tell when our clinicians were referred a case and they were like, wow, this clinician did such a good workup, like, we have all the information we need to start with, and yeah, so I just want to be that clinician one day. And so it was a cool rotation, and I'll be taking that one again as well. Okay, so after oncology, I had my very first externship. At Missouri, we get quite a bit of free time. We call it our off block or free thirds, that we get to go to other clinics and do what we call an externship, where you spend time, you do a rotation at a clinic outside the university, and just to kind of get real world experience. And the first one I did was at an emergency clinic in Portland, Oregon, and it was really great. It was cool to be in a new city and to explore. I had some friends there, so we got to hang out, which was really great. And yeah, I did a lot of triaging. It was also a specialty clinic, so I got to scrub in on a surgery, which was cool, and observe a couple other surgeries and meet some of their interns and ask them all of the questions I had about applying for an internship maybe, and yeah, but it was the first time that I really thought of myself, like I could see myself as a doctor. And that sounds kind of silly, but when you're at, you know, your vet school, like it feels like school sometimes. And then when I was at this clinic, like it felt like the real world. And I remember thinking, like, you know, reading through a patient's history, like, okay, if they came in with, you know, these presenting symptoms, you know, what would I think might be the problem? And then I would scroll a bit down and be like, okay, that's what they thought was the problem. Like, I didn't get those two possible issues. Like, I should read up on them. And then, you know, like, okay, given our diagnostics, what do I think we should do as a plan? And then I'd scroll down and like see their plan and be like, okay, like I got most of it, but I missed some stuff. And I think that was the coolest part, but also the scariest of like, it made me realize how much I still have to learn. And, you know, I'm a third year out of, you know, 4 years, so I still have a whole nother year of things to experience and rotations to take, and I'm definitely nowhere near done with my learning, so I tried not to be too hard on myself, but I definitely, you know, it made me realize how big of a jump it's going to be from vet school to being a new grad. And yeah, so I just had a lot of questions for them about that transition and how to do it hopefully gracefully. And yeah, and they had a lot of really great advice, and so thank you to everyone out there. You definitely helped me out. So yeah, it was just a great time in Portland. Okay, so when I got back from Portland, I took cardiology, which was my most recent rotation. I actually finished yesterday, and that was a really cool rotation, and I learned so much on it. And I feel like I say that for every rotation, but especially cardiology, because I remember in didactics trying to learn all of the like heart sounds and how to learn ECGs, which is like the electrical measurements of the heart, and trying to learn all of the cardiac drugs. It was just really overwhelming, and I was like, I want to take this rotation so I get like a handle on this, you know. And so I took the rotation and I learned a lot. And I just remember before the rotation, someone would listen to a patient and be like, oh yeah, it's a left basilar systolic murmur grade 4 out of 6. And I'd be like, how did you get all of that information from listening? Like, what? And you know, through this rotation, I was like, okay, like left, right, got it. And basilar means, you know, towards the top of the heart, and apex means towards the bottom. And systolic means when the heart's pushing, and diastolic means when it's filling. And grade 4 out of 6 means that it's very loud and radiating, but there's no palpable thrill. And you know, so it really did stick, which was really cool. And I got to see a lot of echocardiograms, which is an ultrasound of the heart. And yeah, it was just a very eye-opening rotation that I feel like everyone should have to take, because you know, every animal has a heart, and especially in emergency medicine, which I'm interested in, you know, a dog may come in heart failure, or it may come in with like, it's eaten rat poison and it also has a heart murmur, or, you know, it's got some other problem and it also has heart murmur. And so you're like, can we take this patient to surgery? We need to find out. And so it's just such a central part of treating animals. So I'm really happy I took it, and I got to do another abdominocentesis, so that was cool. And yeah, so now I'm on to my next free block of time, which will be about 8 weeks, and I'm really excited. And I'll be taking I'll be going to visit my grandparents for a little bit, and then I'll be hanging out at home, and then I'll be going to the University of Glasgow for a oncology rotation, and I'm so excited for that. I'll get to stay with my friend who goes there. She's a second year. And then after that, I fly into Chicago, and I'm doing another externship there. It's emergency for 1 week, and then rehabilitation for another week. So I'm just so excited to hang out in Chicago. and see what they have to offer. And yeah, so I'll definitely be vlogging all of that, and so I can take you guys along. And also be sure to check out my Instagram page. You'll kind of be able to get more frequent updates there, and I'll be doing some giveaways soon, so definitely be sure to keep an eye on that so you don't miss them. And yeah. Alright guys, that's the end of my video today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to give it a like, and if you're new here, please subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so that you never miss one of my videos. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.